Hello everyone again. I hope you had a nice break. And we are now continuing our online conference, Cultural Relations Managing the Uncertainty. We already had a very interesting keynote from Dave Snowden about making decisions in complexity and in chaos. And he had some very interesting inputs and comments on the leadership approach, which I think is very interesting bridge to what we are going to talk about at the moment. I'm happy to welcome Maryna Starodubska on this virtual stage. If you participated in our opening event on the 23rd of April, you have already heard Maryna's speech on cultural, internal cultures, organizational cultures. And today she will have a keynote about the leadership in a post-COVID world and how to go with your team through the hard times and what it takes for leaders to do so. Maryna is a managing partner at the ТЛFRD Ukraine and has huge experience in human resource management and also a master's degree in this field. And I'm happy to welcome Maryna on this stage. And let me remind you that if you have any questions, you can always put them in the chat of the event, and we will be happy to answer them in the end of Maryna's speech. So Maryna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Let's get the slides up so that we can see them. Here they are. Great. I would like to thank Dave Snowden for such an important comment about leadership, that very often, at least in Ukraine, we follow the more, to quote David, American view of leadership, which is one person who gets all the credit and who apparently does all the work. Well, as COVID clearly has shown us, that isn't a viable model, especially if the people that one person has to lead are sitting in 2, 3, 10, or 10,000 apartments or houses around the country, or even in several countries. So let's see what it takes for a leader today to actually steer your team through hard times, and times are hard. We all can feel it, especially in culture. So let's look at the next slide. This is just to take you to where we are. We are looking at the organization resilience model, which is made up of 3 components, of which I have the honor and the pleasure of covering 2. We have covered culture and behaviors, the green one, during the previous Alteration session. And today we will be talking about leadership and strategy. And let's just briefly remind ourselves, what is organizational resilience? It's organization's ability to absorb and in a changing environment. And please note the word absorb. So you don't just kind of bend and adapt, you change along with the environment that's happening around you. So let's talk on the next slide, what or who is a leader. I couldn't help myself knowing that I'll be speaking right after the break, and that's, you know, a special challenge always. So I took a liberty to give you a little caricature, a little picture. So while I'll be talking about leadership, here's some visual illustration of that. So leadership, as science says, is a relationship, which is important. It's not me telling you where to go. It's a relationship between you and me, where you as a follower or as followers voluntarily want to follow me as a leader to wherever I'm taking you. And this relationship has 4 distinct characteristics, and if at least one of them is absent, it's not leadership. So let's see what that is. Accountability. So if you're a leader or if you're a follower in a leader-follower relationship, both parties are accountable to each other. What does it mean, accountable? You deliver on promises, you keep deadlines, you help when help is needed, you do not abandon your team in a crisis, and things like that. Efficacy. So you produce results. A leadership relationship is all about some kind of common vision. So we're going somewhere. So if we're not going there, the relationship isn't working much. So efficacy, result, sense of belonging, and that from our experience and from what literature says is the key characteristic differentiating leadership from management. Because to manage people, you certainly need skill. You also need authority, formal authority. So if you're not the boss of me, I'm not gonna do what you say, at work at least. Leadership is about whether I feel as a follower that I belong with this leader in that team. And for that, a leader does not need to have formal authority. That explains why we have in your and my organizations, we have informal leaders who apparently do not occupy high-level positions, but people trust them. People believe in their vision and expertise, and people are following them. And vice versa. You can have a highly ranking manager with all the official titles whom no one is really listening to. Identification. That is another important thing that COVID has impacted very much, because if I want to identify with my organization, I need to share its values. I need to respect its leaders, respect my teammates, like my job. And all of that pre-COVID has been happening live. We were all mingling in our workspaces, and we were sharing these workspaces and sharing contact and experiences. And now, the statistics with our clients is that those clients of ours who sanctioned the return to offline work did so for approximately 60% of their personnel. So 40% of people do not, or at least in the nearest perspective, are not going to return to the previous work format. And that begs the question, how am I going to identify with my employer if my work is done from my apartment or co-working or somewhere? Where does that thread of identification, where does it end? Where does it begin? And that is why leadership is important. So leader is trusted and followed regardless of their official rank and of their formal authority. And as you can see on that wolf picture on the right side, it takes, some communication to be a good leader, because what's happening in the back isn't always, what's happening in the front. So let's see further on the next slide how we can see and pinpoint where leadership actually helps organizational results. I understand. The slide is scary. Don't be afraid. I'll take you through it. So above on the slide, we can see these phrases written in red. Leadership characteristics, situational context, leadership style, and then we have this fat red arrow that says direct influence, and then indirect influence. So what we're going to look at is where specifically being a productive leader affects our organizations. Let's begin at the left part of the slide, individual differences. Personality of the leader is very important for his or hers or theirs efficacy in leading a team. Having clients in a range of areas, I can say that certain personality traits are in higher demand, say, in metallurgy, than they are in culture or, say, IT. So when we're thinking who would be a good leader for our team, skills aren't the only thing we're going to look at. But personality traits actually determine leadership propensity to much higher degree than cognitive ability. To put it simply, a smart person isn't necessarily a good leader. So at the beginning, we need to see what kind of person is leading our organization or a team. What's their personality? Is it compatible with the team? And that's key. Is it compatible with the key actors the organization is working with outside? Then we have this little rectangle that says breadth of authority. What that means is, okay, I have a compatible personality, I gel with the team nicely, stakeholders have productive relationship with me, but I basically don't have much authority. That will or will not be a problem depending on how regulated your industry is. But for those of you who represent government organizations, you can surely relate to that. When you're ready, you want to do it, your team wants to do it, the regulation isn't exactly helping you. And here is where the leadership comes in, because a good leader will see how we can go about this problem. Are we treating, let's continue with this example. Are we treating the complex regulations as a discouraging obstacle? Oh God, we'll never do it, forget it. Or are we treating it as a challenge to overcome? Okay, we have this complexity. How can we work around it to make sure we follow the rules, but also to make sure we deliver? Where does that come from? Next, we see there are two ovals, yes? How the leader actually leads their behaviors, and this is called leadership in organization. Every day, coming to work virtually or live, a leader is setting an example to employees how the management of an organization should be done, how they should work and act. If a leader is prone to looking for quick decisions, changing their opinion on the spot, interrupting, not listening, believing that their authority and expertise is the only right way to go, it's no wonder that after a month or so, that leader is not going to hear a word of initiative from their team. Why? It's not in demand. So when we talk about leadership in post-COVID times, we need to see, are there any behaviors of ours that need to be changed? For instance, if pre-COVID, your organization did not develop a feedback culture, what is a feedback culture? Is basically that when I see a problem, I call it a problem, I speak out, I offer a solution. If such a culture has not developed pre-COVID, post-COVID, we have a catastrophe, because people are sitting at homes, seeing clearly something not working, and not at all always reporting it, or God forbid, suggesting solutions, because why? They are asking for the order to come from upstairs. So behaviors post-COVID need to evolve. Decisions, the bottom oval, and we can see there's a phrase, leadership of organization. And that is about how a leader is taking the organization from one stage of development to the other. Say you need to expand your team rapidly because you're entering a new area of activity. And we have a problem because that completely new team is big. You were an organization of 100 people and you are expanding to 150. That's a lot of new blood, which is good. On the other hand, that's a lot of an alien culture that's not yours. And that means that as a leader, as leaders, we need to steer our organization through this change to make sure we embrace these new people, but we also don't lose who we are. So there are 3 points in an organization where a leader has direct, measurable, and powerful impact on how an organization works. We're under that fat arrow up there, direct influence. 3 productivity factors. A leader influences individuals, how they treat the organization, attitudes, and how they act inside the organization. If in our organization we have a habit of toxicity, distrust, possibly burnout, who's not burned out these days, right? But if we have all these problems, naturally the productivity will drop. Toxicity alone can drop the productivity of the team by as much as 40%. And it's a leader's job to note that something is happening and help the team get through it. What we see in Ukraine, and it's very interesting whether in your respective countries you see the similar trends, is that in Ukraine many leaders expect of their followers, subordinates, to just pick themselves up magically, tough it out, and just continue performing regardless of all the changes that COVID has brought on. And even though some people can do it, most people can certainly not. So a leader is responsible to see, is our productivity on individual level is up to par, or are we having problems? Team dynamics and performance climate. How are members of the team interacting with each other? Are there conflicts? How can you see conflicts if your people are online? How can you even know the conflict is happening? So in the post-COVID times, the team dynamics are very important, and that means 2 things. First, the more delegation of authority on team management from top leaders to mid-level leaders. At least once a week, preferably more often, a team leader should have check-in events, meetings, call it chats, anything with the team, not about work, not about setting tasks, but just about seeing how everyone is, letting people to vent, exchange their thoughts, anything, just to feel as a team, as people who belong and who are cared. In a culture like Ukraine, and we belong to multi-active cultures in the Lewis system, it's important. Personal relationships are important for team productivity in countries like Ukraine, and from what I can see in literature and practice in Eastern Central Europe, definitely, and in many other countries as well. And finally, organizational productivity. If you have productive teams, if you have productive individuals, our structure works well. We don't have problems in cross-cultural, cross-functional interaction. We don't have the important tasks falling through the cracks when the project involves several functions. Strategy. If there is lack of leadership in an organization, what we get is every department has their own agenda. If there is no leadership, every department is following their own goal. And very often, these goals aren't exactly moving in the same direction. We had a client who had an important claim from their client in Italy. A claim was very serious. The product the client received was of poor quality and it was contaminated. And that claim was being footballed from one department to another inside the provider company for one reason. No function could call themselves responsible for this problem. Why? Because they had separate goals and no unifying goal and clearly no leadership. So if we have problems in our organization from the standpoint of teamwork, culture, productivity, the first place to look is leadership on individual, team, and organizational level. And if there, in that domain, everything works, then you have quality, financial, clients, and HR points which will be working well. If in these 3 points we have major problems, respectively and consequently, productivity will be poor, financial aspect will also have problems, clients will not be satisfied, and you will be leaking talent. Let's look at the next slide and see in more details how we can go about defining, am I a leader? Yeah. Checklist. How can we understand that someone's a leader? Well, they have followers. And I'm going to thank David again for his very on-point reference to the very limited and one-sided view of a leader being the chief person in a team. Actually, science says that if you don't have followers, you're not a leader. Doesn't matter how skillful you are, how successful financially or otherwise, the key characteristics of you being a leader is you having followers who follow you voluntarily because they trust you and share your values. You have a vision where we're going. When we say leadership or lack of leadership, we usually imply a clear direction. And what COVID has done is it created the uncertainty in which many organizations have actually lost a sense of direction. I very much remember and appreciate the discussion from the previous Alteration event where colleagues from Book Arsenal were sharing, and I think Cannes Festival were sharing the experiences of how much work needs to be done for our visitors to appreciate online events because they don't believe that these events are as valuable as offline ones. And in that sense, which way are we going? And that's also a leadership question. So vision. Can a leader communicate a roadmap? If a leader is the only person who understands where we're going, we have a problem. For instance, one of our clients was intending to launch their business, a client from Ukraine, launch their business in the United States. Very ambitious model, very ambitious goal. But a leader implied, for some reason, he thought that a team is as excited as he is about this product launch, while in reality, this product launch was one of numerous tasks his team had to perform. They were burned out, they were falling ill because we have COVID. They were recovering from numerous challenges COVID has posed to their health and family. To cut the long story short, the launch failed. And it failed not because people weren't capable. They were quite capable. They failed because the leader forgot to reshuffle the priorities or assumed that everyone else understood the priorities in the same way that he does. So communicating a roadmap as to how we're going to achieve a vision is important. Act on values in crisis more than ever. One of the key problems we see from the surveys on Ukraine's market of employment is that people are very angry at the companies who declared pre-COVID a set of values on which they never delivered. And leadership stands on values, as we all stand on the ground. If you don't have values your followers share, they have no reason to follow you. For instance, values can be productive or they can be destructive. If in our team it is considered a norm to miss deadlines, to not respond to emails on time, to not offer solutions when someone's asking for them, and a leader is not addressing such behavior, wait and see, the whole team will soon be acting this way, or an organization will lose a lot of productive talent. So acting on values during COVID is even more important than before. It's a test for all of us. If when things go south, we ditch our values, we abandon them, it means we didn't have them in the first place. Stick to your followers, which means that when times get hard, a leader's job gets tougher, because in a leadership relationship, there's a sense of belonging. Remember the first slide, belonging? And if a leader doesn't have time to check in with their followers and see how you're doing, not how you're working, how you're doing. Anything I can, help you with, talk to you about. And yes, some leaders may say, what? I'm going to do that to 100 people? No, not to 100 people, but to your direct subordinates you should, and they should to their direct subordinates, because we as organizations have human relationship with our employees. Human. That science says human, not economical. We're not just buying skills in exchange for salary. We're motivating people to enter into a human relationship, because people are the only asset of an organization which needs constant motivation to be engaged. Yeah, when you're putting paper into printer to print a report, you're not asking the papers, permission to put it in the printer. You just do it. When a person comes to work, they can very well sit and do nothing if they don't feel motivated. So sticking to your followers, making sure they're okay on human level in post-COVID times is very important. Embrace difficult decisions. What that means is a leader does not need to be loved by everyone. Respected, yes. Followed, yes. But a leader, especially a service-minded leader who cares about the team and is working to gel the team together, not take all the credit for the team's work, such a leader will say, I need to make a difficult decision. I know it's difficult. It pains me to make it. Here's what the decision is. Here's how we will work with it. Because crises do not come without hard decisions. And our reputation audits show that after the COVID-stimulated layoffs, the companies that helped their people, communicated, were trying to ease their burdens and pains of losing a job, actually has lost much less reputation capital than those who just threw people out. So sticking to your followers and embracing difficult decisions is important. Stimulating followers to develop. You all know the term lifelong learning, right? It's been used for quite a while now. But a productive leadership relationship is a relationship where followers like to follow a leader because they grow in that process. And culture as an area, as an industry, is a perfect place for that, except sometimes you are stretched to grow in so many places at once. But growth is important because growth acts like a gel, like a glue in a team. If I like to grow in this team, I'm not going to leave it. Let's go to the next slide. And I think it's don't be afraid. That's the last complicated slide in my presentation. Think about this way. Left and top. What this model shows is there are actually 8 steps. You see this rectangle, yes? Steps. 8 steps or stages of leadership progression. And we have this axis where you have effective leadership on top, ineffective at the bottom, active to your left, and passive to your right. Now, before COVID times, the styles of leadership described in the blue color called transactional. What are those? Transactional leadership is the leadership relationship where followers follow a leader in exchange for something. Be it growth, be it money, be it something else. So they share a vision, they trust and everything, but their relationship isn't deep. It's transaction-based. There's nothing bad in that, but in uncertain, difficult times, when the processes we have known before break down, when the markets shift, when people get sick, you need to think on your feet. People burn out and need help. A leadership based on transactional attitude doesn't work. So let's briefly see what kinds of leadership there are. And we're starting from the bottom to your right. Laissez-faire. In French, laissez-faire means hands-off. Hands-off leadership means no leadership. And that is a style when a leader avoids making decisions and just lets the team do it. Well, in a team of 2, that may work for a little while. In a team of 5 or more, it's a disaster. In a team of 5 or more, working from home, it's a double disaster. So, no. Management by exception. What that means is I, as a leader, only intervene in what my team is doing when my team is not meeting some standards. Okay, we failed 2 projects out of 5 we needed to launch, and now I'm intervening. No. In uncertain times, that doesn't work because you may discover problems too late. You need to be ahead of such things. Next level, management by exception active. That's where a leader is proactively looking for mistakes. Okay, is my team doing everything right? Are you keeping up with the KPIs? Are you doing that correctly? Well, that's better than doing nothing for sure, but the mindset where you're looking at what people are, whether people are not screwing up, isn't exactly the most motivational, especially if the people don't have a luxury of live interaction where they could source that contact and that inspiration from other sources. So no. Now we're looking at the middle of the slide with the white rectangle, contingent rewards. Contingent rewards is a very neutral, systemic approach where a person knows, here's my contract, here are my KPIs, here are my tasks, here's how I work. Everything is clear. Well, COVID kind of threw that out because nothing has been clear for almost 2 years. And in some industries, it's still not clear now. So contingent rewards is quite a good leadership style for very, very calm and predictable times. And I can assure you that's not Ukraine post-COVID. I'll tell you more. Ukraine hasn't been predictable even pre-COVID. So at least in our country, that's not the way. Now let's look at the green part, the transformational, upper left. We have 4 styles of leadership there. And what they are about is why transformational. Transformational leadership is about joint change. When a leader and a follower have a relationship that goes deeper than transactional level, and because it's a relationship, there is reciprocity. Reciprocity means I trust you, the follower, to do a good job, and here's how I help you. And I, follower, trust you, leader, to develop a good strategy and a working roadmap, and I'll do my job to implement that. What do we need to have for that to happen? We have 4 steps going into upper level corner, and with each step, the depth of leadership relationship is growing. We're beginning at the center of the slide, individualized consideration. It's where leader is not just giving tasks, you go do it quickly. I needed it yesterday. Familiar story, right? But a leader actually puts tasks in a context. Okay, here's another task to your 25 tasks you need to do today. And it's important, here's why. Because if a follower doesn't understand the difference between the 150 tasks on their to-do list, they're going to pick and choose what they can physically accomplish based on whatever thinking. So it's a leader's job to be a mentor, to be a coach to a degree, and help people set priorities. Intellectual stimulation, and that's about intelligence, rationality, careful problem solving. It's when a leader says to the follower, okay, we have a problem. We need a solution. Let's see what you think from your side. So when a leader is proactively sourcing followers' expertise when solving problems, instead of just telling them what to do. Now, you may ask, Maryna, what if there is no time to think? You're right. And this is why it's good to establish this kind of relationship long before you're going to hit a crisis point. If a follower is intellectually involved in solving a problem, in executing tasks, they are interested deeply in doing a good job. Inspirational motivation, that only works if a leader is respected by followers and they have the same values, and then a leader sets expectations and the followers are in return setting expectations of the leader. For that to happen and for both sides to fulfill these expectations, important purposes need to be explained very simply. A simple test. Ask your program manager what specifically they, that program manager needs to do today to help accomplish your organizational goal number 4. If they can explicitly tell you what, you're good. If they can, it's a red flag. Talk to them. Do they understand what they're doing and to what bigger goal that contributes? And lastly, idealized influence. I don't really dig the name idealized. Don't like that word, but that's the author's right. Yes, it's Bass and Avolio said so. Idealized influence is when followers share with the leader the same mission, pride, respect, and trust. And as you understand from what we just looked through, is to have all that, you need to go through the previous 3 steps. I think we have 2 more slides left. Let's go on the next slide. I think it's a snapshot of practice. I apologize for the little red line that kind of dropped down on a diagram for some reason. Don't be scared of these stripes. It's very easy. It's a snapshot of practice. It's a snapshot, certainly without the name of a client, from one of our diagnostics of leadership in an organization. And every color of the stripe represents a specific department. Oh, and I also can see that for some reason my English translation did not go in there. Okay, I'll tell what the diagrams mean in words, and I will make sure you guys get it in English very quickly. As you see, there are 9 names of departments: management, administration, accounting, analytics, and so on. And you can see 5 diagrams. Every diagram is a model of behavior. And the question is, survey question, what is the best way to gain your team leader's trust? We asked in an anonymous survey in one of our clients' organizations. So diagram number 1. What do you need to do to gain leaders' trust? Diagram number 1 to your left. Do everything a leader tells you to do, including something that's not your job. And as you can see, in some departments that is quite pronounced. And you can see numbers there, and the highest number is 5. If the number is 5, the behavior is very much present. If the number is 3 or lower, not so much. So quite present, people do it. Next diagram, propose effective solutions and improvements, give feedback, and we can see that in that organization, all the bars are quite high. Next one, execute on tasks with minimum questions or clarifications. Well, the numbers are lower than with feedback, but still, this behavior model is pronounced. 4th, work better than everyone and demonstrate it, obviously, like flaunt it. Well, the numbers are smaller, but still, a lot of functions I actually believe it should be done. And finally, the last one to your right, help the team leader in their political maneuvering. And as you can see, there are departments where people believe that that's how things should be happening. 3 conclusions we make from that. There are very numerous and very diverse leadership behaviors in that organization, which means that in different departments, you can run across completely different leadership styles. And that begs the question, how are these departments interacting with each other productively? They're like different planets. Second conclusion, internal career paths in this organization can be difficult. For instance, if I work at administration and say I want to work, I don't know, in management, I can see that there are quite differing leadership styles in these functions, and people may simply not want to go to another department, even if the job may be attractive, but leadership style isn't. Cross-functional interaction in here can be a disaster. Why? Because behaviors are different. If I believe that to gain my leader's trust, I must do a good job, it's one approach. If I believe that to gain my leader's trust, I need to not ask questions and do what I'm told, it's not a bad thing, but is it the same culture as the previous one? So to wrap up my presentation and leave us some time for questions, I think we have one more slide there with practical things. 5 practical steps to improve leadership in an organization that works in culture. Slow down before you collapse. I mean it. We've been there, you've been there. You know, burnout is inevitable if we plan to do more than we can do. Do not plan more than your capacity allows. The only outcome will be burnout, and from that point on, you can lose a lot of people in a metaphorical and a non-metaphorical way. Institutional approach is the only way. Many organizations in Ukraine believe that we need a star engineer, star manager, star financist to take us to a new level. No, you don't. You don't need a star. You need a productively working system. A resource based of the view of the firm says, an organization is as competitive as effective are the systems in which its people work. So no group of stars can take an organization to a new level, but a working team with a working leadership can. All functions are equally important. Legal and accounting are not less important than program and management, but every function needs to know where their place is in this complex process and how they can contribute to the common goal. If our functions have apprehensions that they are competitors or some of them are undervalued, we're going to have a leadership problem. No footballing of responsibility. Planning ahead, keeping deadlines, and that sounds like an obvious situation and an obvious advice, but when we have an overload and we just can't cope, saying that, I can't perform more than up to here. I can do it up to here without collapsing. I'm telling you honestly, and I'm suggesting this course of action to remedy the situation. That's better. That's better than collapsing doing it and just failing everybody. Do not tolerate poor performance and slack attitude. Good leadership is about ensuring that non-values-based behavior is not tolerated, because if it is going to eat up your team's performance climate and their performance. Thank you very much. If there are questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you, Maryna, for such an interesting presentation, as usual, very insightful and very specific, with a lot of food for thoughts, I would say. Colleagues, if you have your questions, please add them in the event chat. And meanwhile, I would like to ask a couple of questions from my side. Let me stop sharing the presentation. So in your presentation, you mentioned that one of the things that true leader can do, should be able to do, is that he or she can communicate a roadmap where we are going as an institution.
Yes.
How, for example, do I as a leader understand if I communicated well? Because maybe in my opinion, I do it in a proper way, I can do that, but maybe the reality is different. How can I understand that I do it efficiently, I do it in the right appropriate amount, this communication is clear and people are definitely understanding what I'm trying to communicate to them?
Okay. it's actually a very practical question, because our people understand our vision only in one case: if they are the co-architects of that vision. If a leader gathers the team and says, okay, people, we're going there. And they're like, okay, we're going there. There is where? I don't know. Don't ask. Just go. And it's an entirely different situation where we actually strategize with our people at least twice a year to make sure that everyone contributes. And that means everyone is on board. We hear about all the risks which one leader can never see all by themselves. And then we have a kind of a chain of motivation, because if all leaders of our functions are invested in producing a strategy, their teams will be invested, and vice versa. If they're not, nothing's going to get.
Thank you. And one more practical, I would say, question from my side about the transformational leadership. I think this is a pretty popular subject and theme, which has been discussed for years already among people interested in management, leadership, and all of that. But there are a lot of big words like mentoring and etc. But if I don't have an example, and I didn't have an example of such kind of leadership in my life, for example, my leaders, my managers were not good enough to call themselves transformational leaders, how can I train myself to be this transformational leader? How should I, what kind of skills I should develop, and how should I do this in practice? Where can I get this knowledge of how to do these things right if I didn't have this example in front of me?
It's actually a very important, I'd say, problem in post-COVID times, because physical contact is limited. You get to go fewer places. So I would answer from two perspectives. One perspective, if you have no leadership experience, you have none. So you've never managed people. In that case, thank God for social media, find a person who you feel reflects the leader you want to be, and find a way to be around them. Be it visiting an event, be it an unpaid internship, be it whatever. My first job, of which I was very proud, was putting files into folders in an international organization. And I felt proud because I was 19 and I had a job. And people read on in which folder the papers. Looking back, that's a bit, funny in a good way, but find a way to be around the person you feel as a good leader. If you are a team leader and you feel that something needs to change, if your relationship with the team is more or less productive, talk to them and say, I can see that we need to change something, beginning with me. How about we re-establish your social contract with your team? We did it with my partner at Telford when I said to people once, you are experienced enough to do this kind of survey on your own. On your own doesn't mean I'm leaving and not caring what you're doing, but I'm not longer moving your legs when you're walking. I'm here as an advisor, and surely I'm checking it before the client gets it, but I'm no longer babying you step by step. And here's the responsibility you get, and here's how our reporting changes. And I was scared that people are going to say, oh no, they said, Hurrah! We love it! Finally, she's getting off her backs. And I was like, wow, why didn't I do that before? So that.
Okay, and what if there is a third scenario? I'm a leader. I want to become a better leader, transformational leader, but my relations with my team are not the best at the moment, but I want to change that. And I cannot go to and speak to them directly. Probably they will not give me an appropriate feedback, or they will not be interested in giving it to me. What should I do in this case?
In that case, you gotta be honest with yourself. What you did for the relationship to deteriorate this way. And if you cannot talk to your team directly, meaning that they're not gonna trust you on that, then you start your transformation with you. Don't talk, do. Change little things. Simplify the stupid process everyone's been crying about for years, if you can do it. Create a workflow for something that's been confusing and you've been putting it away because you were too busy. Start with the pain points where you can produce the biggest change. And as time will go by, these pain points will heal and the team will be getting more open bit by bit. That's going to take a year at least if you don't have too deep of problems. But it will work because team will see that you're not just a blabbermouth, that you are practicing what you preach. And that could be a good starting point to change the leadership style in the teams.
Thank you, Maryna, for this answer and for your presentation. I think we now have a lot to think about and to look at ourselves and to reflect on our leadership approaches. And I really hope that your keynote speech would encourage everyone who listened to it to have this reflection, and this will be an encouragement and empowerment for leadership style improvement and development, and looking for the best ways to be a supportive leader for our teams. So thank you for your time and thank you for being with us both at the opening event of the Alteration program and at the closing event here today. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. I already sent the corrected presentation to Irina with that slide, with the practice, with all the English words. So you can look at it. Thank you very much again. Thank you.